This is To the Point with Michael Williams.
Good morning and welcome. Controversy in Congressional District 18 covering Martin, St. Lucie and parts of Palm Beach County. Years-old comments surfacing, and I sit down for an exclusive interview with incumbent Republican Congressman Brian Mast. Seeking re-election, he's under fire for what he himself now calls disgusting comments to a friend, again years ago, about rape and, quote, hooking up with 15-year-old girls. That friend is now his campaign manager. WPTV News Channel 5 reporter Matt Cesney has the story.
The Facebook posting is from 2009, and in it, Brian Mast, who was in the military at the time, seemingly joked about sex with 15-year-olds to a friend. The backlash came quick from his Democratic opponent, Pam Keith. This is disgusting, unacceptable, and dishonorable behavior by any man, and an insult and betrayal to the women he claims to represent. Mast, in a statement, said of the decades-old comment, "I made disgusting, inappropriate jokes that I am embarrassed to have associated with my name today. I am sorry about that part of who I was, and I strive every day to be a better example for my kids." He also clipped Twitter posts from Keith and an exchange she had on Twitter. Mast supporters say she made politically charged and unsubstantiated comments trivializing sexual violence.
I am a victim of rape myself.
Nyla Pipes is a self-described Republican from the Treasure Coast.
And what I think is wrong in our society right now is we have a tendency to normalize sexually inappropriate comments.
The controversy has now also sparked attention on what was a somewhat quiet bid for re-election for Mast.
And I think it puts him in a very serious situation.
Larry Casey is an experienced Republican consultant on congressional campaigns.
It seems to me that this will sink in the next couple of days, and this information will flood our mailboxes and our TVs, not necessarily from the Democratic opponent, but from third parties. And I think they will be all over the place on this.
Congressman Brian Mast, thank you for being with me. Comments, jokes about rape, talk about sex with 15-year-old girls. To those who say, how could you say such things? How could you think such things? And how does it represent you? And is it a real view that you have about young women and women in general? What do you say?
No, I would say, number one, there's no real seriousness whatsoever to those kind of views. But I would say this, I have to start with an apology. That I've apologized before, but I owe a to-the-camera apology. I'm sorry. I am sorry for making inappropriate, vile, disgusting, unacceptable jokes in my past. There is no excuse for it. And that is all I can do, is apologize for something said so stupidly in my past.
Why'd you say it?
And I'm not going to give an explanation, and I would say it for this reason. If I'm explaining this, then I'm giving an excuse. And I think to give any kind of excuse is to cheapen the apology that I owe for saying something so crass, so stupid. And I don't want to cheapen that apology. I think it would be wrong to do so.
How do you guarantee your constituency that you've grown up and moved beyond those views?
I think you used an appropriate word, grown up. I mean, I would look and say the person, the boy, the young person that said that, maybe not a boy, but the person that said that looks like me and has the same name as me, but it's not the same person. That person hadn't yet recovered from catastrophic injury. That person hadn't kicked a laundry list of narcotics that I was on at different points. That person hadn't gone through 4 years of college. That person didn't have 4 amazing children. That person didn't have a genuine relationship with Jesus Christ. That person hadn't gone on to serve with multiple federal agencies or a foreign military or a host of different things. It was so much a lifetime ago. And again, all I can do is simply apologize and say, I am sorry for anything like that I said in my past. It was wrong.
For clarification, at least one of the comments was made prior to your service and war injury, was it not?
That's correct. I believe one of them was made as far back as 2009.
You're the
not
lead
prior to my service, but prior to
not prior to
injury.
your Army service, but prior to your injury on the battlefield. Sir, you are the lead sponsor on a military rape survivor bill. How do your constituents going forward square that effort with this?
I actually spoke to the young woman who helped me champion that rape survivor bill and bring that to the Supreme Court, Harmony Allen. I consider her a friend. It's the very first apology that I made. And to say very frankly, she said that she accepted my apology. And her second statement to me was this, that everybody said stupid things in their past. And that's not an excuse, but I was grateful that she was offering me forgiveness.
Congressman, in the piece that previewed our interview, this was said, but I'll repeat it. Your opponent in Congressional District 18, Pam Keith, said in part, quote, "This is disgusting, unacceptable, and dishonorable behavior for any man, let alone a sitting member of Congress. Rape, violence, and intimidation of women and children are not Brian Mast's punchline. His words are an insult and betrayal to the women he claims to represent." Your response to those comments and to some who have said you should resign?
I would say it's probably one of the few things that Pam Keith and I agree on. As I've said, they're disgusting, vile, unacceptable comments. And I am an adult. I try to teach my kids that whatever you say, whatever you do, right or wrong, you own it. And I won't do anything less. It was wrong, and I shouldn't have made jokes like that. But I would say this as well. To people that say, that you shouldn't move on in that. That's not what America is all about. America is fundamentally about every day we wake up and we get to decide that today is a better day or that I'm going to be a better person today. We don't live in an America where because you said something stupid a dozen years ago, it's going to be an albatross around you for your entire life. Or because you made a bad joke a long time ago, you should be fired from your work or you shouldn't be allowed to get a job. And thankfully, I do thank God that I am a different person that said that. And that's why I say to those that say, you should step down or something like that, that was a different person than the person sitting with you right now.
To be clear, you're not resigning.
Absolutely not.
And I have to ask, are we going to find any other comments unearthed like these?
I certainly hope not. Let me try to say this in not trying to be a jaded political way, but if I had known that I had ever said something like that in my past, I think it probably goes to common sense to most people that I probably would have said, man, get rid of that comment. I wouldn't want anybody to know that I ever made such a crass, disgusting joke. I didn't know that something like that was out there at this point. As I said, I deeply regret ever making a joke like that. I certainly hope I didn't say anything else like that.
Let's turn to other topics now. You were at the president's acceptance speech for his nomination at the White House last night, making some viral rounds. When you exited the White House, a protester came up and repeatedly asked you, what do you think about police killing black people in this country? Talk about that verbal exchange and your reaction.
It was a pretty heated exchange that I had. I was surrounded by a crowd of people yelling at me that I don't think they really wanted to hear anything that I had to say.
Which was?
What I said to them was that it's wrong simply for a police officer to kill anybody when they're not defending their own life. That's wrong. And I'll say this, I think it fundamentally goes to my belief on police conduct. It is never the job of a law enforcement officer or of a sheriff to administer their own rogue punishment. That takes away any person's right to due process, and that's why it's wrong. It's the job of a judge or a jury or a court to administer a punishment, not the law enforcement officer. But I do come to this from this other premise. It is wrong to think that our law enforcement officers should have some net cast on them that says they are hateful or bigoted. The vast majority of them risk their life for the right reasons for their community every single day. And to paint them with any other brush would be wrong.
Do you think it's fair to say to people, do you think that you can't be safe living in Joe Biden's America? Clearly a law and order theme and clearly a message being sent that you're not safe in Joe Biden's America. And that's the theme from the president on down. And Joe Biden himself said the problem we have right now is we're in Donald Trump's America. And he views this, talking about ongoing violence in Wisconsin and elsewhere, as a political benefit to him. He's rooting for more violence, not less. He's pouring gasoline on the fire.
We're not in Donald Trump's America. We won't be in Joe Biden's America. This is the people's America. It is our country. We are what we make of it every single day. Just like I said earlier, we choose to wake up every day and be better or worse, but we get to make that choice. Now, do I fundamentally believe that there are safety issues moving forward with the policies that the former vice president has sought to make? Yes. If you are not backing fully law enforcement officers and law and order and saying the chaos, the riots, whether it's verbal or physical assaults of people in the street, that's wrong. If you're not addressing that, then you're not doing the right thing. Or let's take borders and immigration. If you are not saying we are going to keep people from illegally entering our country, that is a major safety issue. And you could go on and on and on down the list.
Congressman, he's called journalists. The president has, quote, the enemy of the people. He says elections, or the election, if he does not win it, is rigged. Do you think journalists are the enemy of the people? Do you think if he should not win the election that it's because it was rigged?
I think there's certainly opportunity to say the election could be skewed or altered in different ways, and I try to give specific examples. If you have, and this is not far-fetched, a very liberal supervisor of elections, and they say they're adamantly opposed to President Trump, so what are they going to do in their most conservative areas that they know about? Maybe they put less people working the polls in that area and try to make lines longer in one area than another. Those are real things that can happen in the country. Now, do I think that the journalists are the enemy of the people? In many cases, there are very dishonest journalists out there, in my opinion. I think you have always been a very fair person to me and other people that I've seen you interview, but I've been interviewed unfairly by people that take a snippet of what I say and try to use it to craft an argument that they're trying to make specifically.
But the enemy of the people, you're fundamentally saying about First Amendment rights, including freedom of the press. Enemy of the people. An election's rigged if I don't win it. Those are powerful statements.
This is a powerful statement that I haven't just heard from you asking. I had a class back at Harvard that was called Truth in Politics, and the entire premise of it was whether you could have any truth in it anymore today at all because of the way things are covered in the media or because of the way people try to cover the things that they say or anything else. It was the entire premise of a course. Final question for this interview. The decision for voters seems it's going to revolve based on what we're hearing from campaigns. Democrats say democracy may end as we know it if Joe Biden doesn't win. I've already talked about what Republicans are saying. You're going to have a big debate about that, but COVID-19 and the response will be huge as well. And the argument among supporters is the president's done all he could. Democrats have argued that no, he has not, that we have the highest infection count, highest death count in the world, and that he's mishandled COVID. People are going to decide one way or the other on COVID, and it appears this law and order thing. What do you say to the response to COVID? And you and I have spoke about COVID a little bit before. To put it in perspective, I said before, President made very prompt responses to cut off travel from China and other places, and from the EU and other places. Responses that were totally demonized, totally criticized by the left, but he did it to stop the spread in the United States of America. We live in a different place where our laws do not all come down from Washington, D.C. We allow segregated laws to come down and say the state or the county or the city can go out there and manage things for themselves. And we shouldn't lose that freedom that we have for states' rights and other things in the midst of this fight going on for COVID. And that's part of what played into it as well. If you were giving him a letter grade, which one would you give the president for his leadership on COVID-19? I would give him an A. I think he did an outstanding job looking at the threats, addressing where they were coming from, and responding to them immediately. Beyond that, making sure that there were more than enough ventilators for anybody that could possibly need them. And beyond that, going forward to put every effort possible to develop a vaccine. Congressman, we'll have to leave the interview there. We thank you for your time today and consider this a formal invitation as we look to sponsor debates between you and your opponent and others in the region. But we thank you for your time today, and we'll talk more about local issues, hopefully at that debate time. Thank you, Michael. A note, I did ask the Pam Keith campaign for an interview with the Democratic candidate. They declined, but we, of course, look forward to speaking with her as well in the near future. And coming up, our roundtable takes up the Florida angle as the conventions wrap and more on response to the Mast interview in a moment.